The morning mist clung to the valley like a shroud, but nothing could hide the shame of what was about to happen in Shadowmere Pack's central courtyard. Lysa pressed herself against the cold stone pillar, trying to become invisible as hundreds of pack members gathered in a circle. Her Omega status meant she should be in the kitchens, not here witnessing this, but something had drawn her to watch. Perhaps it was the haunted howling that had echoed through the servant quarters all night, or maybe the whispers that today's punishment would be unlike any before. "Bring forth the condemned!" Alpha Theron's voice boomed across the courtyard, and Lysa's stomach twisted. The crowd parted as guards dragged a figure forward. Even from her hidden position, Lysa could see the prisoner was massive, broader than any wolf she'd known, though his body bore the telltale signs of silver poisoning. Dark veins spider-webbed across his exposed skin where the chains had burned him. His clothes, once fine, leather and wool, hung in tatters that revealed more scars than unmarred flesh. "Behold," Theron announced, his scarred face twisting with satisfaction. Kale Nightwhisper, former beta of the Crimson Fang Pack, caught trespassing on our sacred grounds during the new moon. A collective growl rippled through the crowd. The Crimson Fangs were their ancient enemies, and trespassing during the new moon when the goddess's protection was weakest was punishable by death. But as the prisoner lifted his head, Lysa's breath caught. His eyes weren't the amber gold of a typical beta. They were silver, like liquid starlight, and they swept across the crowd with defiant dignity despite his chains. "His pack has been given 3 days to pay the blood price," Theron continued. 50 gold marks, or this dog becomes our property." He paused, savoring the moment. Today is the 4th day. The crowd erupted in vicious excitement. Someone threw a stone that struck Kale's shoulder, his wounded shoulder, and he barely flinched. But Lysa saw it, the minute tightening around his strange silver eyes, the way his jaw clenched against the pain. "So we auction him," Theron declared. "Starting at 30 gold marks. Who wants a Crimson Fang dog to break?" Silence. No one wanted to waste gold on an enemy who'd likely die from his injuries anyway. 20 marks then." Theron's voice grew irritated. Lysa found herself moving forward, drawn by something she couldn't name. As she drew closer, she saw what others couldn't from a distance. The black corruption spreading from his wounds wasn't just silver poisoning. It was something else, something that made her dormant healing instincts scream in recognition. Moon death, she realized with icy clarity. The forbidden poison that slowly severed a wolf's connection to their beast. He wasn't just dying, he was being spiritually destroyed. 10 gold marks, Theron spat. "Surely someone wants—" "I'll take him." The words fell from Lysa's lips, before she could stop them. Every eye in the courtyard turned to her, and she felt the weight of their shock and disgust. An Omega, the lowest of the low, daring to speak at a pack gathering. "You?" Theron's lips curled in disgust. "An Omega thinks she can purchase property?" Lysa's hand went to the small pouch hidden in her apron, her life's savings. 5 gold marks, scraped together over years of servitude, meant to buy her freedom one day. 5 gold marks, she said, her voice steadier than her trembling hands. The crowd erupted in harsh laughter. An Omega trying to buy a beta, it was absurd, blasphemous even. "You dare mock this proceeding?" Theron snarled, stepping down from the platform. "The law states any pack member may bid," Lysa said quietly, though her heart hammered against her ribs. "I am pack, am I not?" Theron's hand moved to strike her, but Kale made a sound low, rumbling, and distinctly threatening despite his chains. The Alpha paused, reconsidering. "You want to waste your worthless savings on a dying enemy?" Theron smiled cruelly. "So be it. But when he tears your throat out, Omega, no one will mourn you." Lysa climbed the platform on shaking legs and placed the coins in Theron's outstretched palm. He squeezed her wrist hard enough to bruise. "You've just signed your death warrant, little Omega," he whispered. "And when they find your body, I'll hang him for murder." Lysa met Kale's silver eyes as the guards unlocked his chains. Up close, she could see the full extent of his condition. The moon death poison had spread to his chest, and his breathing was labored. Yet when she offered her shoulder for support, he accepted with unexpected gentleness. "Can you walk?" she whispered. His response came in the old tongue. liquid syllables she didn't understand, but that made something deep in her soul shiver with recognition. When was the last time she'd heard the ancient language of the first wolves? As they descended from the platform, the crowd parted with jeers and threats. But Lysa noticed something else. Cale wasn't leaning on her as heavily as he appeared to be. He was shielding her, using his larger frame to block the worst of the crowd's spite. They barely made it 10 steps before she felt him tense. His nostrils flared, and he turned his head slightly toward the forest line. Following his gaze, Lysa saw them shadows moving between the trees. Wolves, but wrong somehow. Their eyes glowed red in the morning mist. Rogues, she realized with cold dread, but Cale's reaction was different. He recognized them. "Are they yours?" she whispered. He looked down at her, those silver eyes unreadable, and spoke a single word in broken common tongue. "Run." Lysa's quarters were barely large enough to turn around in a forgotten storage closet in the servant wing that she'd claimed years ago when she'd first presented as an Omega. But it was hers, and more importantly, it was hidden. Getting Cale there without being followed had required every secret passage and servant's shortcut she knew. By the time she barred the door behind them, his breathing had become dangerously shallow. "You can't die," she said, more to herself than to him, as she helped him onto her thin pallet. "I just spent everything I had on you." During his 3 days of imprisonment, he'd been listening to the guards, learning their tongue. Now Cale's eyes tracked her movements as she gathered her hidden supplies, herbs she wasn't supposed to have, clean water she'd had to steal from the kitchens, and most dangerous of all, the healing salves her grandmother had taught her to make before the old woman died. Omegas weren't supposed to know healing. They were meant to serve, clean, breed if they were lucky enough to be chosen. The fact that Lysa could sense injuries, feel the wrongness in damaged tissue, was a secret that would get her thrown in the Moonfall chamber if anyone discovered it. "This is going to hurt," she warned, beginning to clean the infected wounds. Kyle remained perfectly still as she worked, though she could see the tension in his jaw, the way his hands clenched the rough blanket. The moon death poison fought her at every turn, trying to spread even as she tried to draw it out. "Why did you bid on me?" The words, spoken in accented but clear common tongue, made her jump. "You learned our language quickly," she observed, avoiding the question. "I asked first, little Omega." The endearment, if it could be called, that should have been insulting. Instead, something in the way he said it made her skin prickle with awareness. "You were dying," she said simply, returning to her work. "I could feel it." His eyes sharpened. "Feel it?" Lysa bit her lip, realizing her mistake. "I meant I could see it. The poison. It's obvious." His hand caught her wrist, gentle but firm. "You're lying. Let go. You're more than just an Omega." His silver eyes seemed to pierce straight through her. "I can smell it on you. Power, dormant but there. What are you?" "I'm nothing." She yanked her hand free. "Just a servant who made a stupid choice." A sound echoed from somewhere above footsteps in the main corridor. They both froze. The steps paused outside the servant wing, and Lysa heard voices. "The Alpha wants her watched," someone said. "That Omega who bought the enemy Beta. Waste of time. He'll kill her before dawn." "Maybe, but Theron wants to make an example when it happens." The footsteps moved on, but the message was clear. They were being hunted. "You should let me go," Cale said quietly. "They're right. This will only end badly for you." "Probably," Lysa admitted, surprising herself with her honesty. "But I'm already at the bottom of the pack hierarchy. How much worse can it get?" Something shifted in his expression. Respect, perhaps, or recognition of a kindred spirit. "You're Alpha," he said carefully. "Theron. How long has he ruled?" 5 years. Since he killed the previous Alpha in Challenge. "And the Moonfall chamber?" His voice carried an odd tension. "How many has he condemned to it?" Lysa's blood chilled. No one spoke of the Moonfall chamber, the ancient cave deep beneath the pack house where wolves were thrown to face the goddess's judgment. Legend said those who entered either died or emerged transformed. In Theron's reign, none had emerged at all. "Why do you ask about that?" she whispered. Before he could answer, Cale's body convulsed. The moon death poison suddenly surged, spreading like wildfire across his chest. He bit down on a scream, his body arching off the pallet. No, no, no! Lysa pressed her hands to his chest, and before she could stop herself, her power flooded out. Warmth spread from her palms, golden light that she'd kept hidden for so long. It met the poison head-on, and she gasped at the malevolence she felt in it. This wasn't just moon death, it had been modified, twisted into something far more vicious. But beneath the poison, she felt something else. Power, ancient and vast, chained beneath Kale's skin. It recognized her light, reaching for it desperately. "What are you?" she thought, pouring more healing energy into him. The poison fought back viciously, and she felt her strength waning. But just as she thought she might collapse, Kale's hand covered hers. His eyes had shifted from silver to pure white, glowing with inner fire. "Together," he growled, and she felt his power join with hers. The sensation was like nothing she'd ever experienced, two forces becoming one, wild and healing energies intertwined. The poison recoiled, retreating back to the original wound. When it was over, they were both gasping. Kale stared at her in shock. "You're a healer," he breathed. "A true healer. They still exist? Please don't tell anyone," she begged. "They'll kill me if they know." "Kill you?" His eyes darkened. "Little Omega, if they knew what you truly were, death would be a mercy compared to what they'd do." Before she could ask what he meant, his eyes rolled back, and he collapsed into unconsciousness. But his words echoed in her mind as she watched his chest rise and fall with steady breaths. The poison had retreated for now, but she could still feel it there, waiting. What have I gotten myself into? Lysa woke to find silver eyes watching her in the darkness. She'd fallen asleep sitting against the wall, exhausted from the healing. Now, hours later, or perhaps days, time moved strangely in the windowless servant quarters. Kale was not only conscious, but sitting up. "You've been crying," he said quietly. She touched her cheeks, finding them wet. The dreams had come again, visions of a massive wolf with fur like starlight, calling to her across an endless frozen waste. She'd been having them for weeks now, growing stronger with each passing night. "Just dreams," she mumbled, then froze. "Wait, you should be dying. The moon death poison is still there," he confirmed, pulling aside the makeshift bandage to reveal the wound. The corruption had indeed retreated, forming a tight circle around the original injury. "But your power holds it at bay. For now." "My power," she repeated bitterly. "The one that will get me executed if anyone finds out. Or thrown in the Moonfall chamber," Kale said, watching her carefully. Lysa's head snapped up. "Why do you keep mentioning that place?" "Because that's where this is all heading, little Omega. You must feel it, the pull, the dreams calling you towards something." "How could you possibly know about—" She cut herself off, but too late. "The dreams," he finished. "You dream of running, of being something more than what you are. Your wolf calls out, but something blocks it. Omegas don't have strong wolves," she said automatically, the words drilled into her since presentation. "We're meant to serve, not shift." Kale laughed, dark and bitter. "Is that what they teach here? In Shadowmere Pack? It's what's true." "No." He stood, somehow steady despite the poison eating at him. "It's what they want you to believe. Do you know what an Omega really is? The weakest rank? The rarest," he interrupted. "The most precious. Omegas aren't weak, they're powerful beyond measure. That's why alphas fear them. That's why they're suppressed, controlled, fed lies about their nature." Lysa shook her head. "That's impossible. I've never shown any power except the healing that just saved my life, the golden light that even my own strength couldn't produce." He moved closer, and she caught his scent pine and winter storms and something wild. "You're not just an Omega, Lysa. You're something that hasn't existed in 100 years. "What?" "A Luna wolf. A true Luna. Not the political title given to an alpha's mate. The kind that could lead a pack through spirit alone, that could heal or destroy with a touch." His voice dropped. "The kind they throw in the Moonfall chamber to die rather than let that power awaken." A knock at the door made them both freeze. "Omega," a harsh voice called. "The Alpha demands your presence. Bring your—" Purchase. Lysa's heart hammered. They'd been discovered. Hide your power, Kale whispered urgently. Whatever happens, don't let them see what you are. She opened the door to find 3 guards waiting, their faces hard with disgust. The Alpha wants to see how his Omega's pet is faring, one sneered. Move. They were escorted through the pack house, up from the servant quarters to the main halls where Lysa had never been allowed. Pack members stopped to stare and whisper as they passed. She kept her head down, playing the submissive Omega, but she could feel Kale's protective presence at her back. The throne room was a study in cruelty. Alpha Theron sat on a chair made from the bones of challengers, his scarred face twisted in anticipation. But it was the figure beside him that made Lysa's blood freeze. Elder Mordecai, the pack's spiritual advisor, stood with his milk-white eyes that saw too much. He was ancient, older than anyone knew, and rumors said he could smell lies and taste power in the air. So, Theron drawled, the Omega thinks she can harbor an enemy in my pack house. He's my property, Lysa said quietly. Bought legally. Legal, Mordecai whispered, his voice like dried leaves. Such a simple word for such a complicated situation. The elder circled them slowly, and Lysa felt his power probing at her shields. She kept her mind carefully blank, her power buried deep. You healed him, Mordecai stated. The moon death poison should have killed him by now. I used herbs. Lies, the elder hissed. I can taste the power on you, girl. Golden and warm and ancient. Theron stood abruptly. You're saying this Omega has power? Healing power? More than healing. Mordecai's white eyes fixed on her. Much more. She hides it well, but it's there. Luna's light, if I'm not mistaken. The throne room erupted in shocked whispers. A Luna wolf? Here? Hidden among them as a servant? Impossible, Theron snarled. Luna wolves are myths. Are they? Mordecai smiled, revealing too many teeth. Then you won't mind if we test her. The old way. Lysa's heart stopped. She knew what the old way meant. The Moonfall chamber, Theron said slowly, understanding dawning on his scarred face. If she's truly what you say, she'll survive it. If not, he shrugged. One less mouth to feed. No. Kale stepped forward, his body tensing for a fight despite his weakness. You can't. Theron moved faster than thought, his fist connecting with Kale's poisoned wound. The beta collapsed with a strangled scream. Take him to the dungeons, Theron ordered. He can listen to her die from there. Please. Lysa dropped to her knees, knowing it was useless but trying anyway. I'm just an Omega. I'm nothing special. Then you have nothing to fear from the chamber, Mordecai said sweetly. The goddess will judge you, fairly. Guards grabbed her arms, dragging her toward the door. She could hear Kale fighting his captors, roaring something in the old tongue that made even Theron pause. What did he say? The Alpha demanded. Mordecai's face had gone pale. He said the Moon Mother will remember this betrayal, that the Crimson Fang Pack will come for their... He stopped, his white eyes widening. No, it's not possible. What? Theron grabbed the elder's robes. What did he call himself? Their lost prince, Mordecai whispered. He's not just a beta. He's Kale Nightwhisper, the heir of Crimson Fang, and he just declared blood vengeance if she dies. The revelation should have saved her. Instead, Theron smiled. Perfect. Let him declare whatever he wants from a cell, and when she dies in the chamber, we'll send him back to his pack in pieces. He turned to the guards. Prepare the Moonfall chamber. Tonight, we remind everyone why Omegas should know their place. As they dragged her away, Lysa caught one last glimpse of Kale. His silver eyes blazed with desperate fury, and his lips formed words she couldn't hear but somehow understood. I will find you. The entrance to the Moonfall chamber lay deep beneath the pack house. Through passages so old the stone itself seemed to pulse with ancient power. They'd stripped Lysa of everything, her clothes, her dignity, leaving her in nothing but a rough shift that barely covered her scarred skin. The goddess prefers honesty, Elder Mordecai had said, as they'd prepared her. No shields, no lies, no power but what truly belongs to you. Now she stood at the mouth of a cave that breathed with its own life, watching her breath mist in air that shouldn't be cold. The guards flanked her, but none would step closer to the entrance. Even Theron, for all his cruelty, remained a safe distance back. "The rules are simple," Mordecai intoned. "Enter the chamber. Face the goddess's judgment. If you are what we suspect a Luna wolf hiding among us, you'll either die or emerge transformed. If you're truly just an Omega, perhaps the goddess will be merciful." His tone suggested mercy was unlikely. "Any last words?" Theron asked mockingly. Lysa lifted her chin, finding strength she didn't know she possessed. "When I walk out of here, things will change." "If you walk out," Theron corrected. They shoved her forward, and she stumbled into the darkness. Behind her, she heard the grinding of stone as they sealed the entrance. The absolute blackness that followed was suffocating. But then, slowly, light began to emanate from the walls themselves, a soft silver glow that revealed the true nature of the chamber. It was massive, carved from a single piece of moonstone that captured and reflected light in impossible ways. At its center lay a pool of water so still it looked like liquid mercury. But it was the ceiling that stole her breath. Thousands of crystals arranged in perfect constellation patterns, each one pulsing with its own inner light. "Come," a voice whispered. "Neither male nor female, young nor old. Come and be judged." Lysa approached the pool on trembling legs. As she drew closer, she realized the water wasn't water at all. It was concentrated moonlight, the essence of the goddess herself. "I don't understand," she whispered. "What am I supposed to do?" "Remember," the voice commanded, and suddenly her mind exploded with visions. She saw herself as a child, her grandmother teaching her to heal in secret. "You're special, little one," the old woman had said, "but special is dangerous. Hide your light until the time comes to shine." She saw her first shift not into the small, weak wolf of an Omega, but something else, something her grandmother had immediately suppressed with herbs and binding spells. "Not yet," she'd whispered. "Not safe yet." She saw Kale in the throne room just hours ago, but from outside her own body, saw the moment his eyes had recognized what she was, saw him make a choice, to protect her even at the cost of revealing himself. And then she saw further back, centuries and millennia, to the first Luna wolves who had walked beside the Moon Mother herself. They hadn't been mates to alphas, they had been leaders, healers, the spiritual hearts of their packs. It was only when alphas grew jealous of their power that the lies began. That Omegas were weak, that Lunas were merely titles. "Now choose," the voice said. "Remain hidden and safe, or embrace what you truly are." "If I choose to transform," Lysa asked, "what happens to me?" Images flooded her mind power beyond imagining, the ability to heal or destroy, to lead through love rather than fear, but also isolation, responsibility, and the constant threat from those who would use or destroy her. And if I remain as I am? Death. Not immediately, but soon. The healing power she'd used on Kale had awakened something that couldn't be put back to sleep. She would either transform or burn from the inside out. Then, it's not really a choice, is it? There is always a choice. The question is whether you're brave enough to make it. Lysa thought of Kale in the dungeons, poisoned and imprisoned because of her. Thought of all the Omegas taught to be less than they were. Thought of Theron's cruelty and how many had suffered under his rule. "I choose to be what I am," she said, stepping into the pool. "All of what I am." The liquid moonlight was neither hot nor cold. It was everything and nothing, beginning and ending. It rose around her, through her, into her, rewriting every cell of her being. The pain was indescribable. Her bones shattered and reformed. Her skin burned away and renewed. Her very soul was torn apart and rewoven with threads of silver light. She screamed, but no sound emerged. The moonlight had filled her throat, her lungs, her heart. "This is what you hide from," the voice said, almost gently. "This is what they fear. Not weakness, but strength beyond measure." Through the agony, Lysa felt her wolf not emerging, but finally being unveiled. It had always been there, massive and powerful, bound by her grandmother's well-meaning spells and her own fear. Now it rose like the moon itself, silver white and magnificent. But that wasn't all. The healing power she'd hidden bloomed into something greater, the ability to see the threads that connected all living things, to mend or sever them at will. She could feel every wolf in the pack above, their pain and joy, their fears and hopes. And she could feel Kale, burning with rage and desperation in the dungeons, the poison spreading again without her power to hold it back. Their connection blazed to life, not a mate bond, but something different. Something that transcended the simple biological imperative of mates. He protected you, the voice observed, even knowing it would cost him everything. He recognized me, Lysa gasped, as another wave of transformation hit. He saw what I was before I did. And what will you do with this gift, little Luna? Will you hide again, or will you rise? The moonlight began to recede, and Lysa found herself standing in the pool, but she was no longer the same. Her hair had turned silver white, her eyes now glowed with soft lunar light, and power hummed through her veins like a second heartbeat. But more than that, she could feel the chamber itself responding to her presence. The crystals above pulsed in rhythm with her breathing, and the moonstone walls sang a harmony only she could hear. "I rise," she said, and her voice carried the authority of the goddess herself. "And things will change." The sealed entrance exploded outward in a shower of stone and light. Lysa stepped through the destroyed doorway, her shift transformed into a gown of liquid moonlight that moved like water around her. The guards who had shoved her in now cowered on the ground, unable to meet her glowing gaze. Theron stood frozen, his scarred face pale with shock. "Impossible," he breathed. "No one survives the chamber." "No Omega survives," Lysa corrected, her voice carrying new harmonics that made everyone present shiver. "But I was never just an Omega, was I, Mordecai?" The elder had fallen to his knees, his white eyes streaming tears. "The prophecy," he whispered. "A Luna will rise from the lowest place, marked by rejection but chosen by the goddess herself. She will remake the old ways and bring judgment to the cruel." "Prophecy?" Theron snarled, trying to regain his composure. "She's still just a servant playing with power she doesn't understand. Guards, seize her." No one moved. "I said seize her!" Theron roared, but the guards remained frozen, caught in the web of Lysa's presence. "They can feel it," she said, stepping forward. "The truth of what I am. Every wolf recognizes a true Luna, even if they've been taught to forget." She tilted her head. "Can you feel it, Theron?" The pack bonds shifting, recognizing their true leader. "You're not the Alpha," he screamed, his form beginning to shift. "I'll kill you myself." "No," Lysa said simply, and Theron's shift stopped mid-transformation, leaving him trapped between forms. "You will release Kyle immediately. You will gather the pack, and you will answer for every Omega you've oppressed, every wolf you've brutalized, every crime you've committed in the name of power." "You can't command me. I'm the Alpha." Lysa smiled, and it was terrible and beautiful at once. Not anymore. The pack bonds that had been slowly shifting suddenly snapped into place with an almost audible click. Every wolf in the territory felt it, the rise of a true Luna, the kind that hadn't existed in living memory. And somewhere in the dungeons below, she felt Kale's fierce joy as he sensed her transformation. But underneath it, she also felt his pain increasing. The poison was winning. "Bring him to me," she commanded. And this time, the guards obeyed without hesitation. Now, because she had risen from the chamber transformed, but the real battle was just beginning. Theron still breathed, Kale was still dying, and she had powers she barely understood. But one thing was certain: the rejected Omega who had entered the Moonfall chamber was gone. In her place stood Luna Lysa, chosen by the goddess herself, and she would reshape the world or die trying. The guards returned, dragging Kale between them. His condition had deteriorated drastically, the moondeath poison had spread to his throat, and his breathing was labored. But when his silver eyes found hers, they widened in awe. "Luna," he breathed, the word holding reverence she'd never heard before. "No," Theron laughed desperately. "This is perfect. Watch your precious prince die, Luna. Watch how powerless you really are." Lysa moved to Kale, her hands already glowing with healing light. But when she touched him, she gasped. The poison had evolved, strengthened by dark magic she didn't recognize. "It's fighting me," she said, pouring more power into him. "Because it was made specifically for him," Mordecai said quietly. "A poison crafted to kill the Crimson Fang Prince. Your healing alone won't be enough. Then what will? She demanded. Mordecai's white eyes flickered between them. A bond, a true bond between Luna and Alpha, but he would have to choose it freely, knowing it would bind him to you forever. Lysa looked down at KL, dying in her arms. You saved me, she whispered. Let me save you. His hand lifted weakly to touch her transformed hair. You're free now. Don't chain yourself to me. Choose, she said fiercely. Choose to live. Choose to fight. Choose us. For a heartbeat, the world held its breath. Then Kale's eyes flashed from silver to gold, his wolf rising despite the poison. I choose, he growled, and pulled her down into a kiss that tasted of moonlight and destiny. Power exploded between them, not the gentle healing of before, but something raw and primal. The moon bond, the rarest of all connections, blazed to life, and with it, the moon death poison met its match. But as it died, it released one final curse. Kale's body convulsed, and when he opened his eyes again, they were neither silver nor gold. They were red, the mark of a rogue. The red eyes meant death. Every wolf knew it when the eyes turned red. The wolf had gone rogue, severed from pack bonds and consumed by bloodlust. It was the ultimate curse, worse than exile, worse than execution. A rogue wolf became a monster, hunting and killing until someone put them down. But Kale wasn't attacking. He lay in Lysa's arms, his now crimson eyes filled with horror as he realized what had happened. Get away from him, Theron shouted, finding his voice. He's gone rogue. He'll kill us all. The guards raised their weapons, silver-tipped spears meant for exactly this situation. But Lysa's power flared out in a protective shield. Moonlight made solid. He's not attacking, she said, though her heart hammered with fear. Look at him. He's still himself. That's impossible, Mordecai whispered. Rogues lose all humanity. It's the law of the curse. Kale pushed himself up slowly, his red eyes never leaving Lysa's face. When he spoke, his voice was rough but clear. The poison, he said. It wasn't just meant to kill me. It was meant to turn me into a weapon. A conscious rogue, Theron breathed, and for the first time since Lysa's transformation, he looked truly afraid. You could slaughter entire packs and remember every moment. Which is why I need to leave. Kyle stood, swaying slightly. Now, before it takes hold completely. No, Lysa grabbed his arm. We just formed the moon bond. I can feel it, you're still you in there. For how long? His red eyes blazed with anguish. How long before I become the monster they designed me to be? Before Lysa could respond, a howl echoed from outside, long, mournful, and answered by dozens more. The Crimson Fang Pack had come for their prince. They've surrounded the pack house, a guard reported, bursting into the chamber. Hundreds of them. They demand the return of their prince and they say they've brought someone called the Bone Oracle. Even Theron paled at that name. The Bone Oracle was ancient, older than any pack, said to see all possible futures in the patterns of scattered bones. Let them enter, Lysa commanded. Under sacred truce. You can't, Theron started. I am Luna, she said, her voice carrying the weight of moonlight, and I say let them enter. The Crimson Fang delegation that entered was led by a woman who could only be Kale's mother. She had the same proud bearing, the same sharp features, though her hair was black streaked with premature white. Behind her hobbled a figure wrapped in so many layers of fur and bone that their gender was impossible to determine. My son, the woman said, then stopped when she saw his eyes. No, what have you done to him? It was Theron's poison, Lysa said, stepping forward, enhanced with dark magic to create a conscious rogue. The Bone Oracle shuffled forward, ancient hands reaching out to touch Kale's face. They spoke in a voice like grinding stone. The Sundering Curse. I have not seen its like in 3 centuries. Can you break it? Lysa asked desperately. Break it? The Oracle laughed, a sound like rattling bones. Child, this curse was woven by the Shadow Weavers themselves. It cannot be broken, only redirected. Redirected how? The Oracle's hidden eyes turned to her. You bear the moon. Blessing, young Luna. Fresh from the chamber, burning with the goddess's own light. You could take the curse into yourself. No, Kale said immediately. Absolutely not. It would destroy her, his mother, Sira added. No Luna has ever survived bearing the rogue curse. Not bearing it, the oracle corrected. Sharing it, the moon bond you formed, it's incomplete. If you were to fully mate, properly claim each other, the curse would split between you. Neither fully rogue, neither fully free. That's insane, Mordecai protested. Two conscious semi-rogues? They could rule differently, the oracle interrupted. Lead through understanding of both the wild and the civilized. It's been done before, in the old times, when Luna and Alpha were equals. Theron saw his opportunity. This is perfect. Let them try. When they both go mad, we'll have justification to kill them both. You forget, Lysa said softly. I am still Luna of this pack. The bonds have already shifted. She turned to face him fully. And I call challenge on you, Theron Bloodclaw, for the crime of poisoning a diplomatic envoy. The room erupted in shocked gasps. A Luna challenging an Alpha directly hadn't happened in living memory. You can't. I can. Unless you're afraid to face me? Theron's scarred face twisted with rage. Fine. Tomorrow at dawn, when I tear you apart, the pack will remember why Lunas belong beneath Alphas. Tomorrow then, Lysa agreed. But tonight I have a curse to share. She turned to Kale, whose red eyes were wide with disbelief. You would do this? Bind yourself to me and my curse forever? You were willing to die for me, she said simply. Let me live for you. Sira stepped forward. If you do this, you can never return to Crimson Fang. Semi-rogues, even conscious ones, cannot hold territory. Then we make our own path, Lysa said, power humming through her voice. But first, we survive the night. The Bone Oracle cackled. Oh, children, you have no idea what you're about to become. The last mated pair who bore this curse together became legends. What happened to them? Kale asked. They founded the Moonfall pack, of course. The only pack where rogues could find redemption. The oracle's voice dropped to a whisper. They died heroes, but not before changing the world. Lysa and Kyle looked at each other, red eyes meeting glowing silver. The choice hung between them, safety apart or danger together. I would rather be cursed with you than blessed alone, Kale said softly. Then let's become legends, Lysa replied. But even as they prepared for the ritual that would change everything, she could feel Theron's rage building, his determination to destroy them both. The challenge at dawn would determine not just who led the pack, but whether the old ways would persist or new ones would rise. And somewhere in the shadows, she sensed something else, watching something ancient and patient that had been waiting for exactly this moment. The moon hung blood-red above the sacred grove, a rare lunar eclipse that the Bone Oracle claimed was a sign from the goddess herself. Just 3 days after the moon bond's forming, the prophecy was already in motion. Lysa stood in the circle of ancient stones, wearing nothing but moonlight and courage, while Kale faced her with eyes that flickered between red and gold. The ritual is simple in concept, complex in execution. The oracle instructed their voice, carrying over the assembled wolves from both packs. You must claim each other simultaneously, sharing blood, power, and curse in equal measure. But if either of you hesitates, even for a heartbeat, the curse will consume you both. The pack house had established emergency shelters years ago for siege situations, and now wolves from both packs gathered there to witness what might be either miracle or catastrophe. Theron watched from the edge of the grove, his scarred face twisted with anticipation. He'd agreed to postpone their challenge until after the ritual, confident that it would kill them both and save him the trouble. Remember, Sira said quietly, once you begin, you cannot stop. The curse will fight you, try to make you full rogue. You must hold to each other and to your humanity. Lysa nodded, though her heart hammered against her ribs. Through the incomplete moon bond, she could feel Kale's turmoil, his fear not for himself but for her, his desperate desire to protect her warring with the growing wildness the curse brought. Are you ready? She asked him. No, he admitted, then managed a slight smile. But I'm here. The Bone Oracle began to chant in the old tongue, words that predated packs and territories. The stones around them began to glow, responding to the ancient magic being woven. The watching wolves stepped back as power crackled through the air. Now, the oracle commanded. Lysa moved first, crossing the circle to where Kale stood. His eyes were fully red now, the rogue curse responding to the ritual's call. But when she reached up to touch his face, he leaned into her palm with such tenderness that tears pricked her eyes. They bit simultaneously, Lysa's teeth finding the junction of his neck and shoulder while his found hers. The moment their teeth pierced skin, the world exploded. The curse hit Lysa like a tidal wave of rage and hunger. Every civilized thought tried to flee, replaced by the primal need to hunt, to kill, to prove dominance. She felt her eyes burning, knowing they were turning red. But through it all, she held on to Kael, not just physically but spiritually, their souls intertwining as the curse split between them. She felt his strength flowing into her, his desperate fight to remain himself, and she gave him her light in return. Mine, the rogue curse hissed in her mind. You are mine now. No, she thought back fiercely, her Luna power flaring. I am my own, and I choose to share that self with him. The curse recoiled, confused by resistance it had never encountered. It was used to consuming lone wolves, not a mated pair fighting in tandem. Through the bond, she felt Kael's amazement. You're actually taming it, his mental voice whispered. We're taming it, she corrected. The ritual reached its crescendo, and Lysa gasped as she felt the final connection snap into place. The moon bond, previously incomplete, now burned with the intensity of a star. She could feel everything Kael felt, his thoughts, his emotions, even the beating of his heart. When they finally released each other and stepped back, the grove fell silent. Lysa's eyes were no longer pure silver, they now held threads of red woven through them, like veins of fire through moonstone. Kael's eyes were the opposite, the red softened by swirls of silver that moved like liquid light. Impossible, Mordecai breathed. They actually did it. The bone oracle cackled with delight. Not impossible, just forgotten. Behold the moonfire wolves, neither fully rogue nor fully tame, walking the line between civilization and wildness. Abominations, Theron spat. They're both corrupted now. Or evolved, Sira said quietly, studying them with wonder. My son, how do you feel? Kael flexed his hands, his expression wondering. The rage is there, but controlled. Like a weapon I can choose to wield or sheathe. The hunger exists but doesn't rule me, Lysa added, marveling at the sensation. It's like having perfect clarity about what the wolf wants while maintaining human reasoning. Enough of this celebration, Theron snarled, stepping into the grove. You still owe me a challenge, Luna. Or should I say, Rogue Luna. The challenge stands, Lysa confirmed, though she could feel the new wildness in her blood singing for violence. But now you face not just a Luna, but a Moonfire wolf. We'll see about that. The packs formed a circle as the two opponents faced each other. Traditional challenge rules dictated wolf forms, but Theron was massive bred for violence and seasoned by years of brutal dominance. You don't have to do this, Kael said quietly. As your mate, I could— No, Lysa said firmly. This is my fight, my pack, my justice to deliver. Theron shifted first, his wolf enormous and scarred, muscles rippling under dark fur. He'd killed 12 challengers in his reign, and it showed in his confident stance. Lysa's transformation was different than ever before. The shift felt liquid, natural, as if she were simply choosing a different way to exist. Her wolf form emerged silver-white, touched with veins of red that looked like living flames beneath her fur. She was smaller than Theron, but radiated a power that made even allied wolves step back. Theron attacked without warning, using his size advantage to try to overwhelm her immediately. But Lysa moved like moonlight on water, flowing around his assault with an ease that seemed to surprise them both. The rogue instincts gave her something she'd never had before, perfect predatory clarity. She could read his movements before he made them, sense the weakness in his left flank from an old wound, smell his growing fear beneath the aggression. Use it, Kael's voice whispered through their bond. The curse is yours now. Make it serve you. Lysa had always fought defensively, as Omegas were taught, but now she attacked with the fluid grace of the hunt. When Theron lunged again, she didn't dodge, she met him head-on, using his momentum. Against him, her jaws finding his throat in a move that was pure instinct. She held him there, not killing, but demonstrating that she could. The challenge was over in less than 2 minutes. "Submit," she commanded through the pack bonds, her mental voice carrying the authority of both Luna and Alpha. For a moment, Theron's wolf rebelled. Then, faced with the reality of those red-threaded silver eyes, he went limp in surrender. Lysa released him and shifted back, standing naked and proud in the moonlight. "Theron Bloodclaw, you are exiled from Shadowmere Pack for your crimes. Leave now, or face execution." The scarred wolf slunk away, and as he crossed the territory border, the alpha bonds shifted fully to Lysa. But she felt them differently now, not as chains of dominance, but as threads of connection, each wolf a distinct note in a greater harmony. "The pack is yours," Mordecai said, bowing his head. "What will you do with it?" Before Lysa could answer, a new voice cut through the night, young, terrified, and familiar. "Luna, Lusa, please, you have to help." A young Omega girl burst into the grove, one Lisa recognized from the kitchens. Her name was Pip, barely 16 and still learning her place in the pack hierarchy. "Pip, what's wrong?" "It's the other Omegas. When they heard about your transformation, about what you really are, they tried to stand up to the warriors who've been." She swallowed hard. "The warriors locked them in the lower chambers. They're going to throw them all in the Moonfall chamber at dawn as punishment for defiance." "How many?" Lysa demanded. "All of them. 23 Omegas." The grove erupted in shocked murmurs. The Moonfall chamber had killed everyone who entered it for generations until Lysa. 23 deaths would destroy the pack's foundation. "They can't," Syrah said. "Even Theron wouldn't have." "Theron's beta Marcus is leading it," Pip explained. "He says with Theron gone and you being half-rogue, the pack needs to return to traditional order." Lysa felt the rogue rage rising, controlled but present. Through the bond, she felt Kael's matching fury. "Then we stop them," she said. "It's a trap," Mordecai warned. "Marcus knows you'll come. He'll have the warriors ready, and in the confined spaces of the lower chambers, numbers will matter more than power." "Then we don't go alone," Kael said, turning to his mother. "The Crimson Fang Pack stands with my mate. Will Shadowmere stand with their Luna?" One by one, wolves began stepping forward, not just the Omega's friends and family, but warriors who'd seen Lysa's mercy with Theron, healers who recognized her gifts, even some who simply wanted change. But it wouldn't be enough. Marcus had the traditionalists, the ones who feared change more than tyranny. "There's another way," the Bone Oracle said suddenly, "but it requires great risk." "Speak," Lysa commanded. "Open the Moonfall chamber yourself. Let any Omega who wishes face the goddess's judgment. Those who survive will be transformed, as you were. Those who don't." The Oracle shrugged. "They choose their own fate." "That's madness," Mordecai protested. "The chamber killed hundreds before Lysa. She was an anomaly." "No," Lysa said slowly, understanding dawning. "I wasn't an anomaly. I was just the first Omega in generations who entered by choice rather than as punishment." She looked at the assembled wolves. "The chamber doesn't judge worth, it reveals truth. And the truth is that Omegas were never meant to be servants." "You want to transform an entire caste?" Syrah asked in disbelief. "I want to give them the choice," Lysa corrected, "just as I was given a choice." Through the bond, she felt Kael's pride and support, but also his concern if even half the Omegas survived and transformed, the power structure of not just Shadowmere but all packs would shatter. "Then we'd better hurry," he said aloud. "Dawn is only hours away." As they raced toward the pack house, Lysa felt the weight of what she was about to attempt. She was not just challenging Marcus or saving the Omegas, she was about to revolutionize what it meant to be a wolf. But first, they had to survive the night. The pack house's lower chambers reeked of fear and desperation. Marcus had stationed 30 warriors at strategic points, all loyal traditionalists who believed in the old hierarchies. They'd barricaded the main entrances, forcing Lysa's group to take the servant passages she knew so well. The communication networks between packs, ancient howling patterns, and messenger wolves had already spread word of tonight's events to neighboring territories. Every pack within 3 days' run would know by morning what transpired here. "They've moved the Omegas to the antechamber," Pip whispered, having scouted ahead. Marcus is making them watch as he prepares the Moonfall chamber. He wants them terrified before he throws them in. Through the stone walls, Lysa could hear Marcus's voice echoing, "Your false Luna has corrupted the natural order, but we will restore it, starting with reminding Omegas of their place." "I count 15 warriors in the antechamber itself," Kale reported, his enhanced rogue senses picking up heartbeats and scent trails. "Another dozen in the corridors leading to it." "Too many for a direct assault," Sierra said grimly, "even with both packs' volunteers." Lysa closed her eyes, feeling the new power thrumming through her veins, Luna authority mixed with rogue cunning. An idea formed, dangerous but possible. "What if we don't assault at all?" she said. "What if we let them think they've won?" "Explain," Kale said, though she could feel through their bond that he was already following her logic. "Marcus expects me to come in force, to fight for the Omega's freedom. But what if I come alone, seemingly surrendering? He'll want to gloat, to make an example of me in front of everyone. That's suicide, Mordecai," protested. "No," Lysa smiled, and it held an edge of wildness. "It's using his arrogance against him. While he's focused on me, you position our forces. And when I give the signal—" "What signal?" Sierra asked. Lysa's eyes flashed red, silver in the darkness. "Trust me, you'll know it." Before anyone could protest further, she was moving through the shadows with the fluid grace her new nature granted. The rogue instincts made her a perfect predator, but the Luna wisdom kept her focused on protection rather than destruction. She entered the antechamber through the main door, walking openly with her hands visible. The warriors immediately surrounded her with weapons raised, but Marcus held up a hand. "The corrupted Luna comes crawling back," he sneered. Marcus was everything Theron had been, but worse, younger, hungrier, with intelligent cruelty rather than mere brutality. "Come to beg for your fellow outcasts?" The 23 Omegas were chained along the walls, many bearing fresh bruises. Their eyes widened with both hope and horror as they saw her transformed state, the red threads through her silver eyes, marking her as something entirely new. "I've come to make you an offer," Lysa said calmly. Marcus laughed. "You have nothing to offer. You're a half-rogue abomination who corrupted our prince's son with your curse. After we purify the Omega ranks, you'll be next." "Actually," Lysa said, moving closer with deliberate slowness, "I came to offer you the truth about the Moonfall chamber." That caught his attention. "What truth? Do you know why it was really built?" "Not the stories we tell, but the actual reason?" Marcus's eyes narrowed with suspicion, but also curiosity. "Speak." Lysa could feel Kale and the others moving into position through the surrounding passages. "Just a little longer. The Moonfall chamber was created by the first Lunas as a gift," she said, her voice carrying to every corner of the room. "A place where any wolf could seek transformation, could become more than their birth dictated. It was never meant to be a punishment." "Lies," Marcus spat, but some of the warriors were listening. "Then why did I survive?" Lysa challenged. "Not because I was special, but because I chose to enter. Because I sought transformation rather than having it forced upon me." She turned to address the chained Omegas directly. "Each of you has that same potential, that same right to choose." "Enough!" Marcus roared. "Guards, prepare to throw them in one at a time. Let's see how many choose transformation when they're screaming." "Wait," Lysa said, and power rang in her voice, not a command, but something deeper. "I'll make you a wager, Marcus." He paused, his ego unable to resist. "What kind of wager?" "Let me enter the chamber again. If I die, you win, the Omegas remain as they are, and the old ways continue. But if I emerge alive again, they all get to choose their own fate." The antechamber went silent. Even the chained Omegas held their breath. "You're insane," Marcus said slowly. "No one has ever survived the chamber twice." "Then you have nothing to lose," Lysa said, spreading her arms wide. "Unless you're afraid that I'm telling the truth, that the chamber recognizes those who enter by choice." It was a perfectly laid trap for his pride. In front of all these witnesses, he couldn't refuse without looking weak. "Fine," he snarled. "But you enter now, immediately, with no preparation." "Agreed." The Moonfall chamber had been opened in preparation for the Omega's execution. its silver light spilling into the antechamber. Lysa walked toward it without hesitation, though she could feel Kael's desperate concern through their bond. "Trust me," she sent to him, "and be ready." She entered the chamber for the second time, and immediately felt the difference. The goddess's presence was there, but familiar now, almost welcoming. "You return, young Luna. Why?" "To prove a point," Lysa replied, "and to request a gift." "What gift could you need that you don't already possess?" "Not for me, for them, for all who would choose transformation freely." The goddess's laughter rippled through the chamber like moonlight on water. "You would democratize divinity? I would return it to its original purpose. You were never meant to be hoarded by the powerful but shared with the brave. And if I agree, what do you offer in return?" Lysa smiled. "A revolution. A return to the old ways when Lunas and Alphas ruled together, when Omegas were revered for their gifts, when strength meant more than just physical dominance. You offer me the future I always intended." "Very well." Power flooded through Lysa, not transforming her further but filling her with purpose. When she emerged from the chamber moments later, she was glowing with soft silver light, and the chamber itself had changed. Its entrance had widened, its light turned welcoming rather than forbidding. "Impossible," Marcus breathed. "The goddess has spoken," Lysa announced, her voice carrying divine authority. "Any Omega who wishes may enter. The choice is theirs alone." "No," Marcus raised his blade. "Kill her. Kill them all." But his warriors hesitated, awed by what they'd witnessed. In that moment of uncertainty, Lysa gave her signal a howl that was both Luna and rogue, civilized and wild, commanding and free. The walls exploded inward, as 2 packs worth of wolves answered her call. Kael led the charge, his red-silver eyes blazing as he tore through Marcus's defensive line. Syrah and her Crimson Fang warriors fought with tactical precision, while the Shadowmere volunteers fought with the passion of revolution. Marcus himself went for Lysa, his blade aimed at her heart, but she moved with the fluid grace of her new nature, dodging his strike and responding with claws she hadn't possessed before the ritual. They fought through the chaos, Marcus with desperate tradition and Lysa with inevitable change. When she finally pinned him, her claws at his throat, she gave him the same choice she'd given Theron: submit or die. Marcus, seeing his warriors defeated, and the Omegas being freed from their chains, finally bared his throat in surrender. "Exile," Lysa declared. "You and any who wish to follow you. Leave now and never return." As Marcus and a handful of traditionalists fled, Lysa turned to the freed Omegas. They stared at her with expressions ranging from awe to terror. "The choice is yours," she said gently. "Enter the chamber if you wish transformation. Remain as you are if you prefer. But know that either way, you are free. The old hierarchies die today." One by one, Omegas began stepping forward. Not all some chose to remain as they were, finally free to make that choice. But 15 entered the Moonfall chamber, and when the sun fully rose, 15 transformed wolves emerged. Each was different. Some became healers with power that surpassed even Lysa's former abilities. Others became warriors with speed no traditional fighter could match, and still others became something entirely new. "What have we done?" Mordecai whispered, watching the transformed Omegas embrace their families. "We've begun something that can't be stopped," Kael said, pulling Lysa against him. "The other packs will hear of this. They'll know that Omegas can become more." "Let them come," Lysa said, feeling the pack bonds settling into new configurations. "We'll teach them the truth that strength comes in many forms, and the greatest power is the freedom to choose." Through the windows, the blood moon was finally setting, giving way to a sunrise that painted the sky in shades of gold and rose. It felt like an omen, the end of one era and the beginning of another. But even as they celebrated, Lysa could feel something stirring in the distance. The revolution had begun, but the old order wouldn't die quietly. The Northern Alliance and other traditional packs would arrive soon, either seeking transformation or demanding its suppression. The real battle was just beginning. But for now, in this moment, with Kael's arms around her and their people free, Lysa allowed herself to feel hope. They were Moonfire wolves, neither fully wild nor fully tame, walking between worlds and bridging them. 3 days had passed since the Omega Revolution, and the world had taken notice. Lysa stood on the highest tower of the renovated pack house, watching the horizon where dust clouds announced the arrival of yet another delegation. 5 packs had already come, some seeking to understand, others to threaten, and a few to beg for the secret of transformation. "The Northern Alliance will arrive by dawn," Kael said, joining her on the parapet. His presence still sent shivers through their bond, the connection having grown deeper with each passing day. "My mother's scouts report 12 packs moving as one. They're calling us the Corruption." "Let them come," Lysa replied, though exhaustion weighted her words. The constant diplomatic battles, the challenges from traditionalist alphas, the delicate balance of teaching newly transformed Omegas, it was taking its toll. "You need rest," Kael said, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "When did you last sleep?" "When did you?" she countered, leaning into his warmth. Through their bond, she felt his concern spike. They'd both been pushing too hard, and the rogue aspects of their nature grew stronger with exhaustion. Just yesterday, she'd nearly lost control when a visiting alpha had grabbed one of her transformed Omegas, claiming they were abominations. "Luna Lysa," Pip's voice called from below. The young Omega had been one of the first to transform and had become Lysa's unofficial herald. "The Bone Oracle requests your immediate presence. She says the blood moon rises tonight, the first since your joining." Lysa and Kael exchanged glances. The lunar calendar had aligned perfectly with the prophecy. They found the Bone Oracle in the sacred grove, casting patterns with actual bones, ancient things that gleamed with their own inner light. Mordecai was there too, his white eyes troubled. "Tell them," the oracle commanded him. Mordecai hesitated, then spoke. "There's a second part to the prophecy. The part I withheld." "What?" Lysa's voice carried dangerous edges. "When Luna rises from the lowest place, when the rogue curse becomes shared grace, when Omegas transcend their given station, then shall come the final transformation. On the first blood moon after the joining, the void pack shall wake from sleeping. One shall stand against the tide, or all shall fall to darkness bleeding." "The void pack?" Kael's muscles tensed. "They're myths, stories to frighten pups." "No," the oracle said grimly. "They're real. The first rogues, the ones who fell so far into the curse that they became something else entirely. They've slept for 500 years, waiting." "Waiting for what?" Lysa demanded. "For someone like you, the Moonfire Wolves. Your existence is a beacon to them, proof that the curse can be controlled, channeled, shared." The oracle's hidden eyes seemed to pierce through reality. "They're coming to claim you both, to make you their alphas and use your power to turn every wolf into what they are. Conscious rogues without humanity." Kael breathed in horror. "We have until moonrise," Mordecai said. "Perhaps 6 hours." "How do we fight them?" Lysa asked, though she suspected the answer. "You don't," the oracle replied. "The prophecy is clear. One shall stand. Not 2, not many. 1. "That's suicide," Kael snarled, his eyes flashing more red than silver. "Perhaps," the oracle agreed. "Or perhaps it's the final transformation. The prophecy speaks of transcendence, not death." Before anyone could respond, a howl split the air, long, mournful, and wrong. It was answered by another, then another, until the sky itself seemed to echo with unnatural voices. "They're early," Mordecai whispered in terror. On the horizon, shadows moved against shadows. The void pack approached like living darkness, their forms seeming to shift and writhe. At their head walked a figure that had once been wolf. Now it stood on 2 legs when it chose, ran on 4 when it hunted, and sometimes seemed to be made of shadow itself. "The Void Alpha," the oracle breathed. "Varjan the Undying, he who first mastered the rogue curse and lost his soul in the process." "Evacuate everyone to the shelters," Lysa commanded, remembering the reinforced caves beneath the pack house. "Get both packs to safety." "They won't run," Sira said, appearing with a contingent of warriors. "Not the Crimson Fangs, not the transformed Omegas, not even the traditionalists who remain. This threatens everything we all are." "Then they'll die," Lysa said flatly. "Maybe," Sira replied. But they'll die as themselves, not as void-touched slaves. The Void Pack stopped just beyond the territory border, their presence like ice against the soul. Vargan stepped forward, and his voice carried on wind that shouldn't exist. "Moonfire wolves," he called, his words both sound and sensation. "I offer you a choice. Join us willingly, and your people may keep some semblance of self. Refuse, and watch them all become extensions of the void." "Counter offer," Lysa called back, stepping forward despite Kale's attempt to stop her. "Single combat, you and me. Winner takes all." Vargan laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "You would stand alone against me? I who have lived 5 centuries in the curse's embrace? Unless you're afraid of one newly transformed Luna?" Through the bond, she felt Kale's fury and terror. "You can't do this. I have to. The prophecy, damn the prophecy." But Vargan was already moving, flowing across the border like liquid shadow. "I accept. When I consume your light, little Luna, your mate will follow willingly into the void." The packs formed a wide circle as the two opponents faced each other. Vargan was everything wrong wolf and human and neither, solid and shadow, living and undead. His eyes were black holes that seemed to pull light from the world. Lysa let her own nature rise. Luna light and rogue wildness, control and chaos in perfect balance. But she knew within seconds that she was outmatched. Vargan had centuries of experience, power beyond comprehension. Their clash shook the earth itself. Shadow met moonlight, void met substance. Vargan's claws passed through her defenses like they weren't there, leaving wounds that burned with cold. Her light barely seemed to touch him. "I'm going to lose," she realized with crystal clarity. "Then we lose together." Kale's voice roared through their bond, and she felt him preparing to break the circle, to join her despite the rules. "No, wait, trust me." Because in that moment of certain defeat, Lysa finally understood the prophecy. Not one standing alone, but one unified, complete, transcendent. She stopped fighting Vargan and instead reached deep into herself, past the Luna light, past the rogue curse, to the bond that connected her to Kale. But she didn't pull on his strength, she gave him hers. All of it. "What are you doing?" Vargan snarled, sensing the shift. "Becoming one," Lysa whispered. She poured everything through the bond, her power, her consciousness, her very self, and felt Kale, after a moment of shocked resistance, do the same. They didn't merge, they transcended, becoming something that had never existed before. The being that stood in Lysa's place was neither male nor female, neither fully her nor fully him. It was Moonfire incarnate, perfectly balanced between all extremes. Its eyes were pure white, not with blindness, but with all colors unified. "Impossible," Vargan breathed. "No," the unified being replied with harmonized voices. "Inevitable." When they struck Vargan this time, he screamed. The perfect balance of their nature was anathema to his absolute corruption. Where he was void, they were substance. Where he was chaos, they were controlled chaos. Where he had surrendered humanity, they had elevated it. The battle became less physical and more metaphysical. The unified being didn't fight Vargan, it offered him something he'd forgotten existed. Choice. "You mastered the rogue curse by surrendering to it," they said. "We mastered it by sharing it. You chose isolation, we chose connection. But even now, even after 5 centuries, you can choose again." "I am beyond choice," Vargan snarled, but uncertainty flickered in his void eyes. "No one is beyond choice. That's the gift the goddess gave all wolves, the freedom to choose their own nature." They extended a hand to him, and in that gesture was an offer, redemption, connection, the chance to be more than the void. Vargan stared at the offered hand for an eternal moment. The Void Pack watched in absolute silence. Even the wind held its breath. Then something shifted in Vargan's ancient face, a flash of memory, perhaps, of who he'd been before the fall. "I was like you once," he whispered. "Young, powerful, certain I could control the curse alone. I thought isolation meant strength. I thought connection meant weakness. And now?" the unified being asked gently. Vargan laughed, not the breaking glass sound of before, but something almost human. 500 years of darkness, And you offer me light? We offer you choice. Vargan's form began to shift, shadows peeling away like old paint. Beneath was something almost wolf, almost human, definitely broken but possibly healable. His hand trembled as he reached out, centuries of isolation warring with desperate hope. I choose. His voice cracked. I choose to try. The moment he took their hand, the Void Pack screamed in unison. Some fled back to whatever darkness had birthed them. Others collapsed, finally free to die. But a few, just a few, stepped forward into the circle of watching wolves. We choose too, one rasped. If it's not, too late. The unified being Lysa and Kale as one smiled with infinite compassion. It's never too late to choose. As the blood moon reached its zenith, they gently separated back into two beings. The effort left them both gasping, collapsed against each other, but triumphant. The prophecy, Mordecai whispered in awe. You fulfilled it in a way none of us expected. Prophecies are tricky like that, the bone oracle cackled. They tell truth, but not always the truth we expect. Vargan stood before them, no longer the Void Alpha, but not quite whole either. What am I now? He asked, voice lost and ancient. Healing, Lysa said simply. Like all of us. The Northern Alliance, Sira said urgently. They'll arrive by dawn, after what they've witnessed tonight. They'll come seeking answers, Kale said, helping Lysa to her feet, and we'll give them truth. We'll teach them that strength isn't about dominance but balance, Lysa added. That Omegas can be Lunas, that rogues can find redemption, that even the Void can choose light. As dawn approached, they stood together, two packs united, transformed Omegas and traditional wolves, former Void creatures and hopeful healers. It was messy and imperfect and beautiful. You've changed everything, Mordecai said to Lysa and Kale. No, Lysa corrected, her hand finding Kale's. We've just reminded everyone that change was always possible. They just had to choose it. The blood moon set as the sun rose, painting the world in shades of possibility. The Northern Alliance's army appeared on the horizon, but Lysa felt no fear. They had faced the Void itself and won not through violence but through compassion. Whatever came next, they would face it as they had faced everything else together, balanced, and free to choose their own destiny. 6 months later, the Grand Assembly had never seen anything like it. Representatives from 47 packs had gathered in neutral territory, called by rumors that had become legends that had become undeniable truth. Lysa stood before them all, no longer the rejected Omega who had spent her last coins in desperation, but not quite the political Luna they expected either. Beside her, Kale commanded respect, not through his royal bloodline, but through the controlled power everyone could sense in him. We called you here to share knowledge, Lysa began, her voice carrying to every corner of the amphitheater. Not to force change, but to offer choice. You offer corruption, snarled Alpha Victor of the Northern Alliance. Omegas transforming, rogues being welcomed. The Void Pack rehabilitated its madness. Is it? Lysa smiled. Tell me, Alpha Victor, how many Omegas serve in your pack? 300, as is proper. And how many have healing gifts that go unused? How many have strategic minds that go unheard? How many could be warriors, leaders, innovators if given the chance? They are Omegas, Victor insisted. Their place is what we tell them it is, Kale interrupted. Just as my place was supposedly beneath my father until I proved otherwise. Just as rogues' places were supposedly outside civilization until we proved they could choose control. And the proof stands before you. Lysa gestured to the gathered representatives from her combined pack. Transformed Omegas stood as equals with traditional warriors. Former Void creatures worked alongside healers. Even Vargan was there, still recovering but undeniably present. This is abomination, Victor spat. This is evolution, a new voice said. An elderly Luna from the Eastern Territories stood, her weathered face thoughtful. I've lived long enough to remember when Omegas were revered, not subjugated. When the Moonfall chambers were places of pilgrimage, not punishment. What you've done isn't new, it's a return to what we were meant to be. The assembly erupted in arguments, some defending tradition, others curious about change, many simply afraid. We're not asking you to change overnight, Lysa said, raising her hand for silence. We're offering to teach those who wish to learn. Any Omega who comes to us seeking transformation will be welcomed. Any pack that wants to understand our ways may send ambassadors. But we will not force anything on anyone. And if we decide you're a threat? Victor challenged. If we unite against you? Lysa and Kale exchanged glances, their bond humming with shared resolve. Then you'll face not just us, but every Omega who dreams of more. Every rogue who seeks redemption. Every wolf who believes in choice over tradition, Kale said simply. The world is changing, Alpha Victor. The question is whether you'll help shape that change or be swept away by it. The assembly continued for 3 days. Some packs left in anger, others in wonder. But 17 packs formally requested exchange programs. 23 Omegas chose to stay and seek transformation. Even Victor, before departing, quietly asked if they would accept his daughter an Omega who had always been different. On the final night, Lysa stood again in moonlight, though this time it was the new moon darkness that promised light to come. Kale joined her, their hands intertwining naturally. Any regrets? He asked. None, she replied without hesitation. You? Only that it took so long to find you. Through their bond, she felt the truth of it. The boy who had been captured and poisoned, the prince who had hidden his nature, the rogue who had found balance, all of it leading to this moment, to them. The Bone Oracle says there are more prophecies, Kale mentioned, about what we've started, where it leads. Let them come, Lysa said. We'll face them as we always do. Together, always together. In the distance, a howl rose not of challenge or warning, but of celebration. It was answered by another, then another, until the night filled with the sound of wolves choosing their own destinies. Traditional and transformed, Alpha and Omega, wild and civilized, all united in the freedom to be themselves. The rejected Omega who had been thrown into the Moonfall chamber was gone. In her place stood Luna Lysa, the Moonfire Wolf, who had walked out not just transformed but transformative, carrying the power to change not just herself but the entire world. And beside her, forever and always, stood her equal, not her superior or subordinate, but her perfect balance. Together, they were rewriting the very nature of what it meant to be wolf. The revolution hadn't ended with her transformation. It had only begun. And in packs across the territories, Omegas looked up at the new moon and whispered prayers to the goddess not for rescue, but for the courage to rescue themselves, just as Lysa had, just as they all could. The age of the Moonfire Wolves had begun. She entered as rejected Omega, but emerged as chosen Luna, not by tradition or birthright, but by the ancient power that recognizes courage regardless of caste. For in the Moonfall chamber, the goddess judges not what you were born, but what you choose to become. From the Chronicle of the Moonfire Wolves,